One of the most powerful changes a person can make is to stop organizing their life around the approval of others. The moment you become dependent on being liked, praised, noticed, or accepted, you begin giving other people control over your behavior. You may not realize it at first. It can appear as kindness, confidence, or social ambition, but underneath it may be a constant question. Do they approve of me? That question can quietly shape everything. You change your opinions because someone disagrees. You exaggerate your achievements because you want to appear impressive. You constantly check whether people are paying attention to you. You become uncomfortable when someone does not respond positively. You begin performing instead of simply being present. And when your sense of worth depends on reactions, every reaction becomes important. One person compliments you and you feel powerful. Another person ignores you and suddenly you question yourself. Someone criticizes you and you feel compelled to defend your entire identity. This is not inner confidence. It is emotional dependence on an audience. Real confidence begins somewhere much quieter. It begins when you can respect yourself even when nobody is applauding. This does not mean becoming arrogant or believing you are better than everyone else. In fact, genuine self-respect often makes a person less concerned with proving superiority. You don't need to announce how confident you are when your behavior already demonstrates that you trust yourself. Think about the difference between someone who constantly talks about how successful they are and someone who quietly works toward meaningful goals. The first person may be trying to convince the room. The second may simply be focused on the work. There is a lesson here. The more secure you become internally, the less desperate you become to advertise yourself externally. This changes the way you interact with people. Instead of entering every conversation thinking about how you are being perceived, you become more interested in what is actually happening. You listen more carefully. You notice expressions and reactions without obsessing over them. You can disagree without becoming defensive. You can accept that someone may not like you without immediately trying to win them back. That is a form of freedom. You are no longer treating every interaction as a test of your worth, and this matters in relationships because desperation can distort your behavior. When you desperately want someone to like you, you may become overly agreeable. You may say things you don't mean. You may ignore your own boundaries. You may continue pursuing attention even when interest is clearly not mutual. You are no longer connecting with the person. You are trying to secure their approval. There is a major difference. Healthy connection requires two people who can remain themselves while getting to know each other. If you have to constantly perform a different personality to maintain someone's interest, you are not building a stable connection. You are maintaining an image, and images are exhausting to maintain. Eventually, the performance becomes difficult to sustain. The person may discover that the version of you they were attracted to was partly constructed for their approval. A stronger approach is to develop yourself before worrying about how impressive you appear. Build competence, develop discipline, learn how to communicate, take responsibility for your mistakes, develop interests that genuinely matter to you. Keep promises to yourself. Become someone you can respect when you are alone. These qualities create a form of confidence that does not require constant attention. You begin walking into conversations without needing to dominate them. You can speak without rehearsing every sentence in your head. You can listen without worrying about whether you look impressive. You can accept a disagreement without feeling humiliated. You can hear no without turning it into a personal crisis. You can hear yes without suddenly believing that your worth has increased, your value existed before the reaction. This is an important principle to remember. Attention is not the same as worth. Someone noticing you does not make you more valuable. Someone ignoring you does not make you less valuable. Someone admiring you does not complete you. Someone rejecting you does not destroy you. Their reaction is information about their perspective and circumstances. It is not a final judgment on your identity. Once you understand this, you become less reactive. You stop chasing every person who pulls away. You stop trying to convince everyone that you are interesting. You stop measuring your progress against the attention other people receive. You begin building a life that is meaningful even when nobody is watching. And paradoxically, this often improves the quality of your relationships. When you no longer desperately need approval, you can approach people with greater honesty. You can appreciate them without idealizing them. You can show interest without losing yourself. You can recognize when the connection is mutual and when It is not. You become capable of choosing rather than chasing. That distinction is important. Chasing says, I need this person to validate me. Choosing says, I enjoy this connection, but I remain responsible for my own direction. That is maturity. Never confuse confidence with pretending not to care about anyone. Human beings naturally want connection, appreciation, and belonging. There is nothing weak about that. The weakness appears when those things become the foundation of your identity. Build the foundation somewhere deeper. Let your values guide you. Let your actions support your words. Let your discipline strengthen your confidence. Let your character become something you don't need to advertise. Then attention becomes a bonus rather than a necessity. And when you no longer need everyone to approve of you, you finally become free to show people who you actually are. There is a quality that has become increasingly rare in modern life: genuine presence. People sit across from one another while their attention is somewhere else. They check their phones, prepare their next response, think about how they appear, or wait for an opportunity to speak. They may be physically present, but mentally they are somewhere completely different. This is why learning to give someone your full attention can become one of the most valuable social skills you develop. Presence is not a trick. It is not something you perform to make another person impressed. It is the ability to temporarily put aside your own need to control the conversation and actually notice what is happening in front of you. When someone speaks, listen to understand rather than simply waiting for your turn. Notice their words, their tone, their pauses, and the emotions behind what they are saying. You don't need to analyze every movement like a detective. You simply need to become attentive enough to recognize that communication is more than sentences. Most people are not truly listening. They are preparing. They are comparing. They are thinking about themselves. They are deciding what story they will tell next. When you genuinely listen, something changes. You become less concerned with performing and more interested in understanding. This naturally makes conversations more meaningful because the other person is no longer competing with your need to impress them. But there is another important part of presence: learning to tolerate silence. Many people become uncomfortable when a conversation pauses. They immediately fill the space with another question, another joke, another explanation, or another story. They assume silence means something has gone wrong. It doesn't. A pause can simply be a pause. You don't have to rush to fill every empty second. Give yourself and the other person time to think. A thoughtful response is usually more valuable than a fast one. This also changes the way you speak. Instead of talking continuously to prove that you are interesting, become selective with your words. Say what you actually mean. Don't exaggerate your experiences simply because you think they will sound impressive. Don't turn every conversation into a competition over who has the better story. There is confidence in simplicity. You don't need to constantly announce your accomplishments. You don't need to demonstrate that you know everything. You don't need to win every disagreement. You can simply participate in the conversation. And when you don't know something, you can say so. That honesty is more valuable than pretending to have an answer for everything. Presence also requires curiosity, but curiosity should remain respectful. Ask questions because you genuinely want to understand the person, not because you are collecting information to manipulate the conversation. Notice what subjects they enjoy discussing. Pay attention to what makes them thoughtful or enthusiastic. Allow the conversation to develop naturally. The goal is not to discover a secret formula for making someone like you. The goal is to become better at relating to human beings. That distinction matters. If you approach every conversation as a strategy for gaining approval, even good communication can become artificial. You begin calculating every word. You wonder whether you are talking too much, whether your joke worked, whether they are impressed, whether you should respond differently. You become trapped inside your own head. Presence requires the opposite movement. Come out of your head, enter the conversation, listen, observe, respond naturally. This becomes easier when you stop treating social interactions as examinations. You don't have to perform perfectly. People make awkward comments. Conversations sometimes become quiet. Two people can misunderstand each other. Not every interaction will be memorable. That's normal. The pressure to create a perfect impression can actually make communication more difficult. Instead, focus on being respectful and attentive. If someone is speaking, let them finish when appropriate. If you disagree, don't immediately interrupt. If you don't understand something, ask for clarification. If you make a mistake, correct it without turning the moment into a dramatic apology. If someone seems uncomfortable, respect their space. These small behaviors communicate maturity more effectively than any rehearsed technique. There is also a powerful lesson in observing your own attention. Notice how quickly your mind wanders. Notice how often you think about what others are thinking about you. Notice how frequently you interrupt because you are afraid you'll forget what you wanted to say. You don't have to criticize yourself for this. Simply notice it. Awareness creates the possibility of improvement. With practice, you can become someone who makes conversations feel less like performances and more like exchanges between two people. And this quality extends beyond romantic situations. It improves friendships, teamwork, family communication, school interactions, professional relationships, and almost every other part of life. People generally appreciate being treated as people rather than as opportunities. So don't learn presence merely because you think it will make you more attractive. Learn it because it will make you more aware. Learn to listen because understanding people is valuable. Learn to observe because awareness improves judgment. Learn to tolerate silence because not every moment needs to be controlled. Learn to speak thoughtfully because your words have more impact when they are deliberate. And most importantly, stop trying to manufacture an impression. When you become genuinely present, you no longer need to constantly prove that you deserve attention. You give attention freely, communicate honestly, and allow the interaction to develop without forcing an outcome. That is not a social trick. It is the quiet confidence of someone who is fully present in the moment. One of the most important things you can develop is a life that does not depend on another person's attention to feel meaningful. When your entire focus becomes getting someone to notice you, approve of you, or choose you, you slowly lose the independence that makes a healthy connection possible. Your life begins revolving around an outcome you cannot control. A stronger approach is to build a life with direction before worrying about who is watching. Have goals that belong to you. Develop interests that genuinely make you curious. Learn useful skills. Spend time with people who encourage healthy growth. Take your responsibilities seriously. God equate routines that help you become more capable. The purpose is not to construct an impressive image for someone else. The purpose is to become a person whose life has meaning even when nobody is paying attention. This distinction changes the way you approach relationships. If you have no direction of your own, another person's attention can become disproportionately important. A message can determine your mood. A delayed response can distract you for hours. An invitation can suddenly become the center of your schedule. You may start abandoning activities you once enjoyed simply because you are trying to remain available. That is not connection, that is dependence. A healthy relationship should add something valuable to your life without becoming the entire structure of your life. Imagine two people who are interested in each other. One person has no interests outside the relationship. Their schedule becomes completely centered around the other person. Every free moment is spent waiting for communication. Every change in attention creates anxiety. The other person has responsibilities, friendships, hobbies, goals, and personal interests. They enjoy spending time together, but they also continue developing their own life. The second person is not necessarily more valuable. They are simply more balanced. They have an identity that exists independently. That independence creates healthier relationships because it allows both people to choose each other rather than depend on each other for their entire sense of purpose. This is why personal development should not be treated as a performance designed to attract someone. If you start exercising, learning, reading, creating, or pursuing goals only because you think another person will notice, your motivation remains outside you. What happens when they stop noticing? Do you stop? If the answer is yes, then the activity was never truly yours. Build something that would still matter if nobody applauded. Learn something because you genuinely want to understand it. Develop a skill because it gives you confidence in your abilities. Pursue a goal because it represents the person you want to become. That is where authentic confidence comes from. There is another important lesson here. Don't make yourself constantly available simply because you are afraid that someone will lose interest. You have responsibilities, you have commitments, you have your own time. If you are genuinely busy, it is okay to say so respectfully. You don't need to invent excuses, and you don't need to pretend that you are unavailable just to create an image of importance. Authentic independence does not require games. You simply have a life. That life should continue whether someone messages you or not. This also protects you from overthinking. When your day is full of meaningful activities, you have fewer empty spaces for endless speculation. Instead of staring at a screen wondering why someone has not replied, you return to your work. Instead of constantly checking whether someone noticed you, you continue learning. Instead of measuring your value through attention, you measure progress through your own actions. Your attention returns to yourself. And this does not mean becoming detached from people. Humans need connection. Friendship, family, community, and meaningful relationships are important. Independence should not become isolation. The goal is balance. Be capable of enjoying company without fearing solitude. Be capable of caring without losing your identity. Be capable of being interested without becoming obsessed. Be capable of giving attention without demanding it in return. This balance also helps you recognize reciprocity. Healthy relationships involve mutual effort. If you are always initiating, always adjusting, always giving, and always trying to keep the connection alive while the other person contributes very little, that pattern deserves attention. You don't have to turn it into a dramatic confrontation. Simply observe. Relationships reveal themselves through patterns. If someone consistently makes time for you, communicates respectfully, and shows genuine interest, that is information. If someone repeatedly ignores your boundaries or only engages when it benefits them, that is information too. Don't force a connection simply because you have become emotionally attached to the possibility of it. Sometimes people become attached not to the actual person, but to an imagined future with that person. They build an entire story in their mind and then become disappointed when reality does not match it. Stay grounded. Now the person as they actually are. Let connection develop gradually. Lime trust to be earned through consistent behavior. This protects both people from unrealistic expectations. And when you build a meaningful life outside relationships, you also become less afraid of rejection. You can experience disappointment without feeling as though your entire future has collapsed. Someone may not be interested. That is painful sometimes, but it is not the end of your identity. You continue, you learn, you grow, you meet other people, you return to your goals. Your life remains yours. This is the deeper form of independence, knowing that connection can enrich your life without becoming the condition for your happiness. Build a life you respect and let relationship become part of that life, not the replacement for it. There is a quiet strength in learning not to rush. In a world where everyone expects immediate replies, immediate decisions, immediate reactions, and constant entertainment, the ability to remain comfortable in a pause has become increasingly valuable. You do not need to fill every silence. You do not need to explain every thought the moment it enters your mind. You do not need to prove your confidence by constantly speaking. Sometimes the most confident thing you can do is simply remain present. When people become nervous in conversation, they often begin talking more than necessary. They tell stories that do not need to be told. They explain simple ideas repeatedly. They interrupt because they are afraid they will lose the opportunity to speak. They make jokes because silence feels uncomfortable. They ask question after question because they believe a conversation must constantly move forward. But meaningful communication does not work like a race. A conversation has a rhythm. There are moments when you speak, moments when another person speaks, moments when both people think, and moments when silence naturally appears. You don't need to control every part of that rhythm. Allow space. When someone finishes speaking, give yourself a second before responding. Think about what they actually said. Perhaps they are sharing something important. Perhaps they are uncertain about how to express themselves. Perhaps they simply need a moment to continue. Your patience communicates something valuable. You are not desperate to control the interaction. And that principle extends beyond conversation. Don't rush to prove yourself. Don't immediately defend every criticism. Don't respond to every message simply because you are afraid of being forgotten. Don't make important decisions while emotional. Don't assume that every pause means rejection. People have lives outside of you. They become busy. They become distracted. They need time to think. They may not know exactly what they want to say. Learning patience protects you from turning ordinary situations into unnecessary problems. Imagine someone sends a message and does not receive an immediate response. A person who lacks patience may begin creating an entire story. They are ignoring me. They must be upset. Maybe I said something wrong. The mind fills the empty space with assumptions, but a patient person waits for information. They don't create a conclusion before reality provides one. This is a powerful habit. Don't confuse uncertainty with rejection. Don't confuse silence with hostility. Don't confuse a delayed response with a final judgment. Let reality speak before your imagination does. There is also a difference between patience and playing games. Pretending to be unavailable simply to make someone chase you is not genuine confidence. Deliberately ignoring someone to create anxiety is not emotional strength. Those behaviors still make your attention dependent on another person's reaction. Real patience is much simpler. You respond when you genuinely have something to say. You give people appropriate space. You continue living your life rather than constantly monitoring theirs. You don't manipulate time to create an impression. You simply refuse to rush. This becomes especially important when emotions are involved. When you feel excited about someone, you may want to reveal everything immediately. When you feel rejected, you may want to send a long explanation. When you feel angry, you may want to respond instantly, pause, give emotion time to settle, ask yourself, will I still want to say this tomorrow? That single question can prevent many unnecessary mistakes. Sometimes the answer will be yes. Then communicate clearly. Sometimes the answer will be no. Then you have saved yourself from reacting to a temporary emotion. Patience also gives you the opportunity to observe behavior instead of relying only on words. Anyone can say the right thing once, pros take time. If you want to understand whether someone is respectful, dependable, considerate, or genuinely interested in maintaining a connection, observe what they consistently do. Don't build your entire judgment around one exciting conversation or one flattering statement. Time reveals character, and the same principle applies to you. You don't need to become impressive overnight. You don't need to transform your entire personality to become more confident. Confidence develops through repeated experiences of handling life responsibly. You speak honestly, you keep your commitments, you learn from mistakes, you become better at listening, you become more comfortable with uncertainty, you discover that you can survive awkward moments without collapsing. You realize that not everyone will like you and you can still be okay. This is how quiet confidence develops. It is not created by pretending to be mysterious. It is created by becoming comfortable with yourself. Silence then stops feeling like a threat. If a conversation becomes quiet, you don't panic. If someone disagrees with you, you don't immediately defend yourself. If someone needs space, you respect it. If you need time to think, you take it. If a connection develops slowly, you allow it to develop naturally. There is no need to force an outcome. This approach also helps you recognize whether a connection is genuinely mutual. When you stop trying to control every interaction, you can observe whether the other person also contributes. Do they initiate sometimes? Do they listen? Do they respect your boundaries? Do they seem comfortable communicating with you? You don't need to manufacture interest. You need to notice whether interest already exists. That is why patience is not passive, it is observant. You are not doing nothing. You're gathering information. You are allowing reality to reveal itself. And while you wait, you continue building your own life. That is the key. Never make waiting for another person's response the main activity of your day. Continue your responsibilities. Continue learning. Continue spending time with people who matter. Continue pursuing your interests. Your life should not freeze because someone else has not made a decision. When you become comfortable with silence, patience, and uncertainty, you become less reactive and more deliberate. You stop chasing immediate reassurance and start trusting your ability to handle whatever happens next. Let silence exist. Let time reveal patterns. Let connection develop naturally without forcing it. One of the clearest signs of maturity in any relationship is the ability to understand that connection must be mutual. You cannot create genuine trust by forcing attention, demanding affection, or trying to convince someone to feel something they do not feel. You can communicate honestly, show respect, and make your intentions clear, but the other person must remain free to make their own choices. This principle sounds simple, yet many people struggle with it because they become attached to an outcome. They decide that they want a particular person's attention, friendship, or approval, and then begin treating every interaction as a problem that must be solved. If the person seems distant, they try harder. If the person says no, they search for another argument. If the person establishes a boundary, they look for a way around it. That is not confidence. Confidence can accept reality. If someone is interested in talking with you, allow the conversation to develop naturally. If they are busy, give them space. If they say they are uncomfortable, respect that. If they clearly communicate that they are not interested in continuing a particular interaction, accept the answer instead of trying to change their mind. A person's boundary is not an obstacle for you to overcome. It is information about what they are comfortable with, and the same principle applies to your own boundaries. Respect should move in both directions. You should not pressure someone, but you should also avoid allowing yourself to be pressured into things that make you uncomfortable simply because you want their approval. This is where self-respect becomes connected to social awareness. You can be interested in someone without abandoning yourself. You can care about someone's opinion without making it the foundation of your identity. You can enjoy someone's company without believing that you must earn their approval at any cost. Healthy connection leaves room for two people to remain individuals. That means learning to recognize reciprocity. Are both people contributing to the conversation? Are both people making reasonable effort? Do both people respect each other's time? Can both people express disagreement without fear? Can either person say no without being punished, mocked, or pressured? These questions reveal much more than trying to decode every individual message or gesture. Look at patterns rather than isolated moments. Someone may have a busy day and respond later. That single event tells you very little, but consistent communication over time gives you more useful information. Someone may disagree with you once, and that is normal, but repeated disrespect is a different pattern. Don't build conclusions from one moment when you can observe behavior over time. This requires patience because the mind often wants certainty immediately. You may want to know exactly what another person thinks. You may want a definite answer about how they feel. But human relationships develop gradually. You cannot force clarity before enough information exists. Instead of obsessing over every detail, communicate directly when appropriate. If something genuinely needs clarification, ask respectfully. If the answer is clear, accept it. If the situation remains uncertain, give it time. This is healthier than creating elaborate theories about what someone might secretly mean. There is also an important difference between confidence and persistence. Persistence can be valuable when you are working toward your own goals, but when another person's boundaries are involved, persistence must have limits. Continuing after someone has clearly said no is not evidence of determination. It is failure to respect their choice. Real confidence does not require another person's agreement. You can hear no and remain composed. You can experience disappointment without becoming hostile. You can step back without trying to create guilt. You can accept that not every connection will develop in the way you imagined. This is a powerful form of emotional maturity. And remember that reciprocity applies to friendship as well. Don't measure your worth by whether one particular person chooses to spend time with you. Build connections with people who communicate respectfully and make room for you in their lives. Friendships become stronger when both people contribute rather than when one person constantly tries to keep the relationship alive. You should also become comfortable with saying no yourself. If someone asks you to do something you don't want to do, you can decline respectfully. You don't need an elaborate excuse. You don't need to apologize repeatedly. A simple, clear answer can be enough. This creates a healthier social environment because people learn that your boundaries are real. While you learn to respect theirs, there is no need to turn boundaries into power struggles. A boundary is not a weapon. It is a line that helps define what you are comfortable participating in. If someone respects it, the relationship has room to grow. If someone repeatedly ignores it, you have learned something important about the relationship. Then you can decide what level of contact is appropriate. Sometimes the best response is more communication. Sometimes it is more distance. Sometimes it is simply accepting that two people are not compatible in the way you hoped. None of these outcomes determines your worth. This is perhaps the most important lesson. Your value should never depend entirely on whether another person chooses you. People have preferences, people have different personalities, people change, circumstances change. Not every connection is meant to become close, and not every interaction needs to lead somewhere. When you accept this, you become less desperate and more authentic. You stop trying to force outcomes. You stop treating every conversation as a test. You stop confusing attention with connection. Instead, you focus on what you can control: your honesty, your behavior, your boundaries, your respect, and the quality of your own character. Let people make their choices freely and make your own choices with the same freedom. The strongest connections are not built through pressure. They grow where respect, honesty, and reciprocity are allowed to exist. The greatest mistake many people make is believing that attraction is something you manufacture through clever techniques. They study lines, memorize strategies, imitate personalities, and try to become whatever they think another person wants. For a short time, this performance may create attention, but attention built on performance rarely becomes genuine connection. The qualities that create lasting respect are not rehearsed behaviors. They are the result of character. Character is what remains when nobody is watching. It is the way you treat people who cannot offer you anything. It is whether your words match your actions. It is whether you remain honest when lying would be easier. It is whether you continue improving yourself even when there is no applause. These things cannot be faked for long. That is why the strongest form of confidence is not something you display. It is something you develop through repeated choices. Every promise you keep to yourself strengthens it. Every difficult conversation you handle with maturity strengthens it. Every responsibility you accept instead of avoiding strengthens it. Over time, people begin responding not to an image you created, but to the consistency of your character. Think about the difference between someone who constantly tries to appear impressive and someone who quietly lives according to their values. The first person often needs continuous validation. They need compliments, attention, and reassurance because the image requires maintenance. The second person does not stop caring about others, but their identity is no longer dependent on constant approval. They know who they are because their actions have given them evidence. This is why dependability is so attractive in every area of life. People are naturally drawn toward those they can trust. If you say you will do something, do it. If you make a mistake, admit it. If you cannot keep a commitment, communicate honestly rather than disappearing. Reliability may not seem dramatic, but it creates something much more valuable than excitement. It creates confidence in your character. Emotional maturity is another quality that many people overlook. It is easy to be pleasant when everything is going well. The real test comes when life becomes uncomfortable. How do you respond to rejection? How do you handle disagreement? What happens when someone criticizes you? Do you immediately become defensive, or can you listen without losing control of yourself? A mature person understands that disagreement is not humiliation. They do not treat every different opinion as a personal attack. They can apologize without feeling weak, and they can maintain a boundary without becoming hostile. This balance makes relationships healthier because it removes the constant need to win. There is also tremendous value in authenticity, but authenticity is often misunderstood. It does not mean saying everything that comes into your mind or refusing to improve because this is just who I am. Authenticity means allowing your behavior to reflect your real values instead of constantly changing yourself to fit every audience. You can grow while remaining authentic. You can become more confident without pretending to be someone else. You can improve your communication without losing your personality. People often believe they need to become mysterious or emotionally distant to appear confident. In reality, emotional availability combined with healthy boundaries is usually much stronger. You can express appreciation without becoming dependent. You can show interest without abandoning your own priorities. You can care deeply while still respecting another person's freedom to make their own choices. Character also requires discipline. It is easy to promise change. It is much harder to create habits that support it. If you want to become more confident, practice keeping commitments to yourself. If you want stronger relationships, become better at listening. If you want more self-respect, stop making excuses for the habits that keep you stuck. Every small act of discipline becomes evidence that you are becoming the person you claim to be. And remember this, never build your personality around what you think will attract someone else. Trends change. Preferences differ. One person may admire qualities that another does not. If your identity is built entirely around pleasing others, you will spend your life changing masks instead of developing character. Instead, ask a different question. What kind of person would I respect if I met myself? Would you admire someone who keeps their word? Would you respect someone who treats others with dignity? Would you trust someone who remains calm under pressure? Would you appreciate someone who continues learning instead of pretending to know everything? Become that person first. Ironically, when you stop trying to appear valuable and start becoming valuable, your relationships become more genuine. You attract people who appreciate your real personality instead of the version you invented to impress them. You stop exhausting yourself with constant performance because consistency becomes easier than acting. The world does not need another perfect image. It needs more people whose actions and character align. Build your reputation on integrity, your confidence on discipline, and your relationships on respect. Those qualities will outlast charm, trends, and temporary attention. In the end, the most powerful quality anyone can develop is not the ability to attract attention. It is becoming someone worthy of genuine trust and lasting respect.